Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. You're excited for the World Cup final today? I'll be in the backyard watching it on the laptop. It's summer. I can't go inside at 3 in the afternoon. I'm sorry, guys. Love the World Cup, though. USA Today caught up with Marcelo Hernandez, who does one thing and does one thing well. Maybe, possibly. He does two things well. Is the second thing being funny? No, it's playing soccer. Marcelo Hernandez was recently spotted at a World Cup game, specifically Colombia versus Portugal. He was photographed in a suite with John Leguizamo and Matt Damon. Pretty fancy. Marcelo said he introduced Matt Damon to both his mother and younger cousin. He says if hanging with the actor, you're next to Matt Damon for long enough that you're like, if I don't say something, I'm an idiot. So I ask questions and I try to get some game from him. When I played soccer, if I was ever with somebody who was playing on a better team or older than me, you try to ask them questions. USA Today tells us Hernandez played soccer right up through college at John Carroll University. He quit 3 years into his sophomore year to pursue comedy. Boy, we could have had one of the great soccer players of all time. Instead, we have a guy who does one thing on Saturday Night Live. According to the university, after a day of classes and soccer practice at night, Hernandez would Uber to comedy clubs to work on his set. Eventually, he realized he had to choose. Choose wisely, he did not. Hernandez recalls, I had to tell the team with tears in my eyes that I'm quitting. That drove me to work hard because I was like, if I'm going to quit something that I'm kind of good at, I should get really good at this new thing. Unfortunately, Marcelo's plan failed and he got kind of good at the new thing, but not really good at it. He does one thing pretty well. Hernandez believes he's probably better now at comedy than he ever was at soccer. Oh, he must have been a terrible soccer player then. Despite playing Division III in college and earning an all first-team honors in Miami as a high school senior. Must have been a pretty crappy league. Marcello says soccer is a full-time job because you're taking care of your body, and I think that SNL is a full-time job because of the schedule. But you're also taking care of your mind. You're trying to write stuff. It's a much more mental game than a physical game, but pretty demanding for sure. I'm curious about that trying to write stuff part because I haven't seen it. Established comedian Gianmarco Soresi continuing to do mainstream press. He talked to Wirecutter and had some travel tips for us.
Hi, I'm Gianmarco Soresi, and I'm a stand-up comedian and host of the Downside podcast. I travel a lot. I would say at least on average 2 flights a week. It's constant. It's crazy. I am here today with advice for how to be the perfect airplane seatmate. Is it annoying if they lean the seat in front of you all the way back? It's what it's there for. That's the function. It can be annoying. I think, like, if it's brutal, you could ask, but that's just what you signed up for.
Gianmarco, I'm a big fan. He's the Comedian of the Year 2026. He, of course, is wrong about reclining. Reclining should be permanently banned on all planes. You don't need to recline. You just do it because the button's there. Same as when everybody first got free minutes and everybody was on their cell phone all the time on trains and planes and being annoying. You were just doing it because you had the minutes. You didn't have anything to say. Same thing with the reclining button. If we take the button away from you, you'll be mad for like 2 seconds one time and you will get over it. No more reclining. Let's keep it technical. Wired had caught up with Pete Holmes. Remember we did this a little bit last Sunday? Well, I saved some of it. Beach Friday. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Pete Holmes tells us he has 80 unread texts. He says the thing I do most often when I read a text is mark it as unread. That was the greatest achievement in tech in the past 10 years. If my wife texts me, it's different. But a lot of times I feel people are just bugging you. It's like, do I work for you? When did we start? Somehow all of life feels like we work in an office. Even your friendships are like, I got to get back to Jennifer. I think a change might be coming. I think AI is going to lead to so much disinformation in your inbox, even in your texts, that we're all going to slowly walk away. We're just going to be like Amish. We're going to be hanging out in person and talking again. We're going to be meeting up and having coffees way more. How many unread emails does he have? 55,426. He says if you reply to an email more than 3 times, you have to start a fresh thread. I'm not going to dig through. I'm getting better at being like, you don't have to do that. I don't think it's a show business thing. I just think I'm 47 years old. What computer does Pete Holmes have? He says a MacBook Air with the M2 chip. I had a slightly thin kind of fun one that snapped in my backpack, so I just bought this pretty thoughtlessly, which is kind of a shame. This was I just need a laptop. There have been other laptops I've had far more feelings about. There was a MacBook Air 11-inch that I still think about. It was the smallest thing I've ever seen in my life, and there was a MacBook that was 17 inches. It was huge. I still think about those computers like they're old friends. Favorite news source of Pete Holmes? None. 0. I get my news from people. This is my unreliable, biased news source, and there's nothing more fun than watching them fumble through the mismatch. They can't even remember why they're angry and scared. Favorite subreddit? None. The folks over at McCall's asked Jeff Foxworthy what inspired the "you might be a redneck" one-liners. Jeff said, back when I was starting out and would go to places like New York and LA, guys would go, look, Jeff, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you got to take voice lessons and lose that stupid accent you got. It was all good-natured fun, but they were always saying I was an old redneck from Georgia. One night I was in Michigan, I was telling them about how I wish I could be sitting in a tree in the morning because it was deer season. They were laughing and calling me a redneck. I said, if you don't think you have rednecks in Michigan, the club we're at now is attached to a bowling alley that has valet parking. That night when I got back to the hotel, I decided to write 10 ways you know if you're a redneck. The next night, not only do people laugh, they were pointing at each other. That's when I thought, if I can have 10, can I write 30? And if I can write 30, can I write 100? Jeff, of all the highlights in your career, what's the most memorable? Jeff said, if I had to pick one, it would be the first time doing Johnny Carson. Back then, there were only 3 channels, and if Johnny liked you long enough to call you over the couch, that made your career. So I was out there doing 500 shows a year grinding. When I finally got the Tonight Show and could do my 6 minutes, they pulled me aside and told me if Johnny doesn't like you, he'll just clap. If he likes you, he'll give you the big okay sign. And if he loves you, he'll call you over to the couch. At the end of my 6 minutes, I was scared to look because it was like Caesar deciding whether I live or die. But I looked over and there's Johnny waving me over to the couch. My only plan when I started doing comedy was to be on Johnny Carson. I remember going home that night after the show, just laying there in the dark. I stared at the ceiling and couldn't stop thinking about how I'd made Johnny laugh. That's all I wanted to do. Isn't that fantastic? The Laconia Daily Sun caught up with my former coworker, Jim Breuer. Jim told the story about the time Joe Pesci was a guest on the show. Breuer used to do a Pesci impression. Jim meets Pesci and says he'll never forget it. After about 10 minutes, he didn't know if he had disrespected the actor. Jim said he confronts me, gives me the whole Goodfellas Tommy scene, scared the living snot out of me. I was like, I'll never do the sketch again. But then he said, busted your chops. I thought I was going to have to pay him commission. Star Trek ruiner Patton Oswalt talked about how he dresses for different occasions. He told Forbes, I have a travel suit, which is a nice loose pair of jeans, really good walking shoes, and then this short-sleeved hoodie with a pocket in front that I could shove stuff in when I'm in the airport. Then I have my wheeled Toomey suitcase. There's a very specific one that fits in the overheads, and then my Toomey briefcase that slides onto it perfectly. When I'm on stage, it's always a t-shirt and a button-up shirt, nothing crazy, but I dress nice for the stage. It's the same clothing during the days. I have to travel, keep it really simple. I don't like to have too much stuff. Especially on a travel day when I have enough anxiety because airports have gotten so insane now. I make the preparation for travel just no-brainer stuff. Here's his travel ritual. Patton Oswalt tells Forbes, this is going to sound kind of insane. I bring a Ziploc bag of PG Tips tea bags, and when I land, I buy some honey. And then I always ask for an electric tea kettle in the hotel room so I can make myself that specific cup of tea, 2 bags, honey. That's a reset for me and helps me calm down. And the Toronto Guardian has a series where they speak with local comedians. How about comedian Nick Burden? Nick practices what he calls beautiful nonsense or freestyle yelling, a crowd-heavy improvisational style shaped more by people watching as a self-described social butterfly than by any specific comedic influences. That's very complicated there, Nick Burden. He explains, although I do have a lot of material, everyone has a story, because I do a lot of international shows. I enjoy hearing about different people's lives, perspectives, etc. Favorite comedian growing up? Dave Chappelle, because literally every millennial grew up on The Chappelle Show. Favorite comedian right now? Sounds basic and mainstream, but honestly, there's nobody more effortlessly funny than Shane Gillis. Dude's an animal. Favorite place you've performed comedy? Budapest. Amazing city with a vibrant nightlife scene and super cool venues. So many people from all over the world go there to party, so every time I've done a show there, you always get like 15 plus nationalities in the audience. Super cool. He was asked to tell them a joke about Toronto, and he said, nah, I'm off the clock. And that's your comedy news for today on a summer Sunday. Enjoy the World Cup. I'll see you tomorrow.